The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. The COMELEC has been receiving backlash for its Oplan Baklas program. But how exactly should campaign materials be put up? Mobile journalist Yeda Pascual tells us in this report.
Posters, tarpaulins, and even billboards. Campaign materials of candidates for the 2022 elections can be seen everywhere. But COMELEC reminds that there are requirements needed to be followed. Otherwise, it will be deemed illegal. COMELEC Resolution 10730 sets a strict sizing requirement for printed campaign materials. For example, pamphlets, leaflets, decals, or stickers cannot exceed the size of a bond paper. Likewise, size of posters made by cloth, paper, or carton should only be 2 by 5 feet. As for streamers, allowed sizing is 3 by 8 feet in public meetings or rallies. It also has to be removed within 24 hours. Meanwhile, signboards have to be 3 feet by 8 feet only. The resolution also states that the person or group who paid for the campaign materials and the name of the candidate should be included on the print regardless if it's free or a donation. Posting of campaign materials in public and private properties with no consent are also prohibited. Why then were campaign materials inside properties of volunteers removed during the kickoff of Oplan Baklas? This caused an outcry online. COMELEC clarifies size limits apply even on posters inside private properties, but people who denounce the COMELEC's actions says that the COMELEC resolution is not a law and that it violates the rights to freedom of speech and expression. Recall that in 2015, the Supreme Court has ruled in favor of the Diocese of Bacolod for putting up a tarpaulin against reproductive health law. The judges also said that COMELEC has no right to regulate the expression of private citizens. To those who want to file a complaint, the poll body says you are very much free to do so. Mobile Journal Yeda Pascual, we are One News.
Presidential candidates cap off yet another week of campaigning. Manny Pacquiao vows to go after the Marcoses and other corrupt officials during the presidential interviews of the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines. Pacquiao also said that apart from same-sex marriages, he's also not in favor of same-sex unions. But he insisted that this does not mean he has low respect for the LGBTQ+ community. Now, also present in the FOCAP presidential interviews was Labor leader Calyodi de Guzman. He took a swipe at the Marcoses as he questioned why former First Lady Imelda Marcos remains free despite being found guilty in 7 counts of graft. Meanwhile, in La Union, Vice Presidential hopeful Sara Duterte stood by her decision to include actor Robin Padilla in her own senatorial slate. This as her running mate, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., insists that Padilla is not part of the UNITEAM's slate. Isko Moreno continues his journey north where he landed in Dagupan City. He won the support of its former mayor, Belen Fernandez. And Ping Lacson and Tito Soto head to Baguio, where they have secured the endorsement of retired police director Mayor Benjamin Magalong. Magalong told the Lacson-Soto tandem that he plans to meet with different sectors to win them votes. Now, 6 Filipinos have been repatriated from Ukraine amid the country's ongoing crisis with Russia. Yesterday, the government helped 6 Filipinos who requested to be repatriated to return home. The Foreign Affairs Department also continues to monitor the situation in Ukraine's borders. And the Philippine Embassy in Poland calls on Filipinos in Ukraine to contact them for repatriation. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. Now, as the FDA reports more counterfeit medicines, the Interior Department is now calling for a ban on the sale of the over-the-counter drugs in sari-sari stores. Mobile journalist King Senko has the report.
All throughout the lockdowns, sari-sari stores have been a go-to place for common needs, including over-the-counter drugs. But what if these common drugs are no longer allowed in community stores? The Interior Department on Thursday called on LGUs to ban the sale of medicines in sari-sari retail stores. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año points out that the retail stores are unlicensed sellers. This comes after the Food and Drug Administration reported the selling of fake medicines. Año adds that violators should be arrested. According to the FDA, around 158 retail stores are selling medicines. For their part, retail store owners say that they don't know of such law.
Ang alam ko yung bawal ang benta yung mga antibiotics. Yung mga amoxicillin, kagahin niya. Ito po kasi walang reseta to kahit sa Google. Kahit pwede bumili.
What I have here is the medicine I purchased in a retail store, a paracetamol. According to the store owner, they received no advice that they're not allowed to sell these medicines. But upon checking online, more resellers are flocking to the Facebook marketplace. FDA OIC Dr. Oscar Gutierrez admits that retail stores are victims as well. But to raise awareness, the DILG and the FDA will team up to help these small business owners. With COVID-19 still around the corner, prevention is still better than cure. But if you ever find yourself going above the normal temperature or coughing up a little, do yourself a favor and avail medicines from licensed pharmacies. Mobile Journal, King Senko. We are One News.
Here are some of the biggest stories we're following across the world. In Hong Kong, some domestic workers are forced to live on the streets after testing positive for COVID-19, while others are denied treatment at hospitals because they were fired. Now, this as Hong Kong reels from the increase in Omicron variant cases. These displaced workers are now calling for compassion amid the rising infections. The United States says Russia is on the verge of unleashing a massive military attack against Ukraine. This comes after an artillery fire hit a Ukrainian kindergarten. In a speech to the United Nations in New York, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken insisted that Moscow could order an assault on its neighbor in the coming days. That's why Blinken challenged the Kremlin to state it clearly that Russia will not invade Ukraine. Malawi has declared a polio outbreak. This comes after a 3-year-old from the capital was paralyzed last November. Laboratory analysis showed that the strain detected in Malawi is linked to the one circulating in Pakistan. This is the first case of the wild polio virus in Africa in more than 5 years. Now, more and more children are getting infected with the Omicron variant of COVID-19. And Telethon Kids Institute's Professor Asha Bowen explains the symptoms parents should expect and how to protect their kids from the virus. Let's watch this.
We really have seen larger numbers of kids getting infected across the globe. And the vast majority of those kids have had an extremely mild illness. We have seen kids coming into hospital, and the reason for children needing hospital-level care has often been they were detected to have COVID and it was an incidental finding for some other reason that they're at hospital. Those often do get counted in case numbers, so we can sometimes see that looking like it's climbing for more hospitalizations when it's actually children who've broken their leg, had appendicitis, had another reason to be in hospital. On the whole, Omicron has remained a very mild illness in comparison comparison to what adults and elderly adults experience for children. But there are circumstances where there's been, I guess, higher numbers reported that have required hospital level care, which has concerned families. We've seen a little bit more of sort of diarrhea and vomiting than we saw with the previous variants, and that's definitely been the case for children as well. Fever, fatigue, a dry cough, a sore throat, a runny nose, and some aches and pains are probably the most common things that we see in children as well as adults. We know that there's a vaccine now available for 5 to 11-year-olds as well as 12 and above. So that's providing direct protection for children. We also know that the vaccine available for adults across the community is another strategy that we have in place to reduce the number of infections that we have, therefore providing that level of protection for young children who don't yet have a vaccine available for them. And as a society, for everyone, it's really important that we do continue to follow those public health strategies that we've become so familiar with over the last few years. And that's staying home if we have a cough or a cold, making sure we're washing our hands regularly and practicing good respiratory hygiene.
And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us later again at 10:15 in the morning as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.